Why'd you recruit this guy?
Who? This guy?
Yeah.
Because he's the best in the history of the American sport.
Yeah, right.
And we're moving it toward the world.
So when did you first know his name?
Oh my gosh. I met him looking at a wall bracket. You were in 7th grade?
Is that 2012?
You had your pajama bottom. He had his Hawkeye pajama bottoms
We were
on.
here for the dual meet.
And, well, the first time I met you was on the wall bracket in Ohio. You were wrestling in a tournament. I think you were in 7th grade. And I walked up and I was looking at wall bracket, this little 110 pounder. Because he was 110 pounds forever. Like for 30 years, you were at 100.
Yeah, I was just telling that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I haven't grown much.
So
height-wise and size-wise.
And then I don't know if you remember, I go, Hawkeye pants. And you go, yeah. I go, you can be a Hawkeye someday. And he said, yeah. And then we battled to get him out of PA. And
did you know him at then, or you just saw the pants and were being friendly?
I knew him. I knew who he was, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you first see the name, though?
So, you know, when I first heard about the name, so Jody Stripmatter was an alum here. He wrestled here for 2 years. He was a 2-time All-American here. And he was his club coach out in, well, they wrestle at, what was the name of that school there, the Orange?
Oh, Latrobe.
Latrobe. They wrestle out of Latrobe High School, and then Franklin Regional, where they did their club there too, also there with him, Kemmer, and then that's where I met Mirren and Caleb Young and those guys, and they were older than Spence, and then, you know, it was just natural. It was just a natural thing with Stripmatter, and Stripmatter had a great experience here. He loved the way that we handled him. He loved the intensity, the grind, and this guy knew that he needed that. And that's really ultimately, I think, the reason, I'm not going to speak for him, but that's ultimately the reason why I think he ended up coming to Iowa. Because he knew he was going to be held to a standard that nobody else will hold him to.
What other schools were you seriously looking at?
Penn State and Iowa was basically the only 2 schools that I really visited.
So why did you choose here?
I mean, I had a lot of reasons, but he's right. I mean, one of the things that I remember us talking about, because Terry was the one who recruited me the most, was his story about Adam and Buvazar Satiev and how Adam Satiev was more talented. He stayed home with his coaching staff, and Buvazar needed to move away to a different coach who promised that he could teach him how to be the best. And even though it was in the middle of, it was like Siberia, middle of nowhere, like away from your friends, your families, your loved ones, and you're just like kind of packing it up and trusting someone. And I always said the easy choice would have been to stay at home, and then the hard choice was but the right choice was to leave, is what the quote I had when I committed here. So that was kind of the.
Do you remember his first day in the room here as a collegiate athlete?
Heck yes. He was coming off a repair, and we were getting him ready for, it was going to be his call together with us and his parents on whether or not we were going to pull him out of red shirt. And so it was a lengthy process. Do you remember the goes? We would go 17, a 7, and a 5 every day. And that's how we built him into some serious shape, and he can already wrestle anyway. The problem was never the wrestling. The issue was the shape piece, getting him to realize that threshold, and then the next day you got to move. Spencer, you got to go a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and that's where, he was so incredibly responsive to the direction that he was taking, and then I was incredibly responsible for the direction he was giving me. Like, I'm learning as this is going on, technically, positionally, learning his mind, learning how he thinks, learning how he responds. He doesn't like to be talked to immediately after something, those kind of things. So you learn and you adapt as a coach also, and then you take that to the corner. And you learn that relationship, and then you take that to the corner, and now all of a sudden, we're not first, introduced to each other when he's standing out there at the Big Ten tournament. We're introduced to each other because the conversations we had at the Big Ten tournament, the national tournament, in the corner before the matches were taking place right here. And
how long did it take you to feel comfortable as his coach, seeing him go through these cycles?
Immediately, first day.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't have an issue with holding somebody accountable. I knew why he came here day one. I wasn't going to take any of his crap, and he wasn't going to take any of my crap. And it was a mutual understanding that we were moving forward and we were marching together toward becoming the greatest wrestler in the history of the planet.
Did you have any hiccups along the way? Were there any?
Of course.
How
But
did
there
you work
was.
through that.
He's a patient man.
It's understanding. it's understanding that you're going to go through that. And when somebody wants to become the very best in the world, and they're a meticulous detail guy, there's going to be frustration because you're a young guy and you're in here and you're scrapping, and then you bring these other guys in, and then you start to where you're coming in on that second day of that training cycle or that third or fourth workout of that training cycle during 2 days, and that's where he grew the most. And we did butt heads, but we didn't butt heads like you go like this. We butted heads, and it was like this. It was like this. I love you, Spencer. It was like that. And he, like I said, it was the response was incredible. So.
Did you get a takedown your first day in the room?
Oh.
Yeah.
Rare. Like he's a rare bird. He got a lot of takedowns his first practice in the room. This guy's rare. He's like a McElravy, where I didn't get a takedown till after Christmas. But this guy, he's rare. It was different. He was. I mean.
When did you see him wrestling? Did you know then? 12-year-old.
You know, but you also watch, and you bring. You come along. You stay in contact with Jody, and
Yeah.
But
Well, Jody always brought guys to watch.
yeah,
their
these
duels,
guys.
so
He was
a
in.
whole group of guys.
There's pictures of you when he was young at Carver, and yeah.
And he would bring a posse, man.
Are you looking at other 12-year-olds right now?
I mean,
Start
if
looking
I
at
see if I see a young kid, like there's a brother of a kid that we're recruiting that's young. He's not that young, but I mean, yeah, but it's a relational thing. Really, the process starts before their junior year. And with you, it might have been even a year later because that rule wasn't in place yet.
Yeah, you could take unofficials.
Yeah,
If
so
you
he
like,
could come to
yeah,
campus.
Could come, yeah.
But we were behind it because we don't cross the line with the rules that way. So we were a little behind. Wouldn't you say a little bit, maybe relationally? We didn't have the opportunity. We didn't live in Pennsylvania, so
Everyone was.
it was a lot of
Recruiting was different when I was in school.
And it was just, hey, it's relational. This is who we are, and he got to know us, and we got to know him. And
what did you think of these guys when you first met them?
I mean, they were just the guys I grew up watching. Like, I was kind of a wrestling junkie, I guess. So it's funny, the era that I watched wrestle was like 80s, 90s, more than 2000s, So they were guys that I knew more. Like I could name those guys in those national teams in the 90s more than I could 2000s or even the recent times, just because that's what I watched, that's what I read, that's what I looked up, So obviously I was like looked up to how they wrestled. I always wanted to wrestle like them. Now I never really wrestled like either of them. They're very unique. But I always wish I could have had a pace like that, and like how mean they were and
that's
how
too
aggressive.
Kind, first of all.
But
let's just stop you right there.
I'm just saying, like that was like, I think it's hard to emulate that, and I mean, no one really has since at all. I don't know if it ever will happen again either. Not to.
Well, I didn't have the talent so I had to make up for it somehow, being a barbarian.